Welcome, everybody. So great to see a few of your faces and see a few of you popping in with your videos off as well. Those of you that I've never met before, my name is Belinda. I'm one of the trainers here at Breathe. And as you know, today we are going to be having a bit of a chat about overcoming fear and anxiety and finding your authentic voice as a teacher. It's a big topic to me because it's something that I've really struggled with in the past a lot, and I still struggle with it. Even now, presenting, teaching courses, owning my own studio, I still struggle with it. It doesn't just mysteriously go away, but it can be managed and it can get better. So here we go. Now, the hardest part for me is my story. Literally the hardest bit is for me to talk about myself. So when we start courses, the very first session is the trainer welcoming the students. Obviously, that's the way it should be, right? But that's the bit that I find the most terrifying because I've got to talk about myself. And I just want to skim past that bit and get to the Pilates, and let's do some Pilates and have some fun, because that's where I feel confident. That's where I feel comfortable. So I don't know about you, but you might have the same experience when you have to talk about yourself. Things get a little bit more scary for some reason, right? I know myself more than I know anyone else. But a little bit about me, and I'll see if I can get through it or if I have to skip through a whole bunch of it, is that I've always experienced anxiety. I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know when I was younger that I was anxious. I had no idea what that even looked like. I thought it would be really obvious, right? You'd see somebody and go, wow, they've got anxiety, help them. And so I was able to function. I could go to school. I could, join in and have fun at parties and that type of thing. But I couldn't physically walk past the guy that I liked in grade 10. Like, I literally felt like I would explode or faint or something like that. The first time, like when I worked at McDonald's in grade 10, around about the same time, and I had to go up and speak to somebody at the counter, it felt like I had concrete on my feet. Like, I literally couldn't walk forward to say, hi, can I take your order? Someone had to give me a push in the back for that to happen. So little things like that happening over the years where I actually had to put myself forward showed me that there was something going on, but I didn't really know what that was. But I would definitely avoid any opportunity that I could to speak to strangers, I guess. So I felt that I needed to confront this. This is when things got a little bit tricky for me, is when I had my kids. And my eldest is now 23, and he pretty much, I felt, was anxious from birth. And that made me feel really sad because I felt like I gave him that, probably through pregnancy, being anxious the whole time or something. But he would never leave my side. Nobody else could hold him. And even to this day, if you talk to him, he'll just go bright red and run away, as in strangers, not me. I can talk to him, but other people. So, and then my second born, he was fine until puberty. And now, if he's got to shake someone's hand, he freaks out because he's going to have clammy, sweaty hands, and he knows that's going to happen. And it's this kind of vicious cycle. If you experience that, you know what it's like. So I did start doing things like yoga and Pilates to build my confidence in myself and my body. And it helped so much that it peeled back enough layers so that I could, learn a little bit more. Because when something helps you, you want to learn more about it, right? And I really felt that my confidence grew through movement. So I went and did a teach training, and I never honestly thought I would ever teach. It was just learning more about this thing. And then my teacher wanted me to teach. And so that was another ball rolling of anxiety-fueled days and nights, and lots of thinking and stressing about what I'm going to teach and if they're going to like me, and how it could all possibly go terribly wrong. When I finished my courses, I had a mentor, my teacher, and she was amazing, bubbly, friendly, just had that kind of personality that she could make you feel like the center of the world. She made you feel so special. And so when you finish some sort of training, you look up to that mentor as somebody that you want to emulate. And I felt that real disconnect there because I didn't feel like I was like her at all. And so trying to be like her was really challenging because it just felt fake. It just felt forced. And it just made me feel like I was never enough. So this is when we start talking about finding your authentic voice and what that really is. Finding your authentic voice obviously isn't copying somebody that you like. That's just copying somebody that you like. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more as well. All right, so that's a little bit about my story. I have, as I said, definitely come a long way, but there's always work to do, always further to go. So we're going to go through my slides that I've got, and then at the end we can have a chat about some more stuff together. All right, let's talk about anxiety. Can I get a little show of hands who has experienced anxiety here in the past? Oh, so lots of hands. Yes. I'd like to say all of us have it, just to different degrees, right? Some of us can't leave our houses. Some of us can't speak in public. And some of us can function really normally and you'd never know they had anxiety until they tell you, or they may never tell you. You just may never know, right? So for myself, when I started telling people that I had anxiety, probably only about 6 years ago now, I did have a lot of people say, no, you don't. That's ridiculous. You're like super chill. Like anxious people are like head cases or something. And you're super chill. You're calm. I'm like, that's just a facade. Inside there's turmoil. Inside there is like things are going hectic in there. So we all have it, but we have ways to cope. We have ways to hide it and bury it and all of that kind of stuff. The problem is that when we're finding these ways to cope and hide it, we're often blocking opportunities for growth. We're avoiding socializing, which is really great for our spirit, building community and all those types of things. So often the things we do to cope are things that aren't actually going to help us get any better. Let's have a little bit more of a chat about what it is, because it's a shitty feeling, but what actually is it? So it's a maladaptation of fear. And so we know that fear is helpful, but anxiety is not, right? So fear protects us. It's helpful. If we are about to cross a street and we hear the sound of a car coming really closely, we need that instant fear reaction so we can jump out of the way so that we can get out of danger, right? Otherwise, it's game over. So we need that fear. But when it morphs into anxiety, that's when things take a bit of a nasty turn and we lose control. So I have a little bit of a fear and anxiety scale, which I learned, which I thought was really cool. And if you've studied with Breathe, I don't know, the first time I heard it, I'm like, wow, it's just like the tissue healing times. Kind of, not really, but you'll get the idea if you know it. So it all starts with fear in the immediate. So we're talking milliseconds. And so that's, let's say we're using that car analogy again. We get that instant rush of adrenaline to do something to get out of fear, right? To get out of danger. And we need that. That's important. That's been baked into us since the good old days when we needed it for real. Then we've got the acute stage, which is fear in the minutes to seconds, right? So that's after we've had that adrenaline rush and we need to run away. And then we can take ourselves out of the danger. Then what happens for some of us is we kind of live there and it turns into chronic anxiety. And so this is not helpful. This is a cycle, and it's a cycle that we find that it's really hard to escape from because of the way the cycle works. I've got some really good resources to share with you that have helped me a lot that I'm going to share at the end. And a lot of the tools that are in there about breaking that cycle, about stopping the cycle, as opposed to just perpetuating it, which is all we do. We find ways to cope, and that mechanism just continues the cycle of anxiety. So when we ignore it and say things like, this is just how I am, which I did for years, I'm just a bit weird, this is how I am, and just sort of put up with it. I know for myself, it just never got better. It just got worse over time, because what I found was, as I got older, I wanted to do more things career-wise. I wanted to do things for my family, and it was really blocking me from doing those things. Doing things like coming here and doing a presentation like this with you all. My anxiety symptoms are, I get super sweaty pits. So it's like, oh my God, it started. And then I get things like, I just feel really hot inside. My brain kind of starts to shut down. Like, I just can't think clearly anymore. And I get this thing, you may have heard it at the start, when I started talking, my voice gets a little bit shaky. And when it gets to the point where it's just like, it's going to be game over, my voice actually feels, or my throat actually feels like it's closing up. Like I literally can't force words out, which is terrifying. And that is sort of bordering on a panic attack, which if you've ever had one, you know they are nasty. And so they kind of all fuel into the same thing. All right, so now we know a little bit about anxiety. It's important to know what it is. It's important to put a label on it so that we can look at ways to counteract it and break that cycle. If we can understand what's going on inside of our brains, we can find ways to make it better. All right, now, big question. Can anxious people be great presenters and teachers? You would think no. You would think it would be a really terrible time to be there listening to someone that's super freaking out in their head. But the fact is, you can't tell. People didn't know that I had anxiety and I was teaching for years. They just don't know. So the short answer is, yeah, we totally can. And the thing I find funny about this as well, and it's something I have no research to back up, but you may agree with this, you may identify with it as well, is that I find that anxious people and introverts quite often go together. So people that have anxiety are quite often more introverted. And so you'd think the combination of those two things would make someone like, why the heck would you want to get up in front of people and tell them what to do with their bodies, right? Like, why would you put yourself in that position? That seems insane. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But yes, we can be great teachers. The key is knowing who you are, but not letting it define who you are as a teacher or as a person, right? So like I said before, people have said to me, you're super chill. You don't have anxiety. I don't know what you're talking about. That's not true. You can't let it define who you are. You can't let it stop you from doing things that are important to you. And you also can't allow it to weave its way into your story so much. So yes, it's something that I find affects me. Yes, it's something I struggle with, but I'm not going to say I'm an anxious person, therefore this, and this, right? Because that's letting it take a hold on me. And I'm not having that. So it's something to think about. Oh, we're going a little bit too far. You are enough as you are. So when we talk about finding your authentic voice in a little bit, it sort of plays into this whole conversation as well about you being enough. And I talked about my mentor and how awesome she was and how amazing everybody thought she was and how I felt like I needed to be like that. It took me many, many years to realize I didn't need to be like her to be a great teacher. There's a lot of people in this world and there's people for everyone, right? And while I might not be for all of you and the rest of the people out there, I'll be for a bunch. So a bunch of people will go, yeah, I really like that Belinda. I really like her classes. And people will say that about you, Carmel, and about you, Danielle, and about you, Lisa. People are going to like you just as you are. And that's a fact. So take that. Energy levels are a big thing to consider as well. And it's something that as someone that gets highly anxious and is also quite introverted, I've struggled with, and I have had to come up with kind of getting very strict with myself and what I say yes to, because my energy levels, I find, get depleted very quickly if I'm doing the wrong things or if I'm not taking enough time to care for myself. So, and that can help spiral anxiety as well. So if I don't have a lot of self-care, if I'm not taking the time that I need to recover from teaching, then things can just quickly get quite out of hand. So for myself, I know that even though I'm here with you in the morning, it's very early for me, I know that I'm not a morning person. I've always known that I hate getting up early, and that's just who I am. I'm not great. So if you're asking me to teach 5:30 a.m. classes, I'm going to say no thanks. Thanks, but no thanks. And that's something you need to know for yourself. Like, how do you feel after you do those sessions? Do you feel great? Start of my day, now I've got the rest of the day. I know a lot of people feel like that. It's like, it's an awesome start to the day. I can get in and get shit done and then have an early night. For me, if I do an early, and I do very occasionally do covers if it's desperate at my studio and they need me, I know that by about 1 p.m., 2 p.m., I start getting a headache. I start feeling really shitty, and that's it. It's that day's done. So I know it just doesn't work for me. I also know that I can't do more than 3 classes back to back, or I just feel really, really strung out. I also start getting quite confused, and this has probably got nothing to do with anxiety, but I start like thinking about what happened in what class, and did I say that already in this class, or was that the last class? It starts freaking me out and playing with my head a little bit. So I know I'm 3 classes, that's it, I'm out. So knowing things like this about yourself will make a big difference in your self-care and looking after yourself, and making sure that you don't let anxiety spiral out of control. So when we talk about anxious people being teachers, we know that when we start something new, it's hard. We know this. This is normal. I've got a 14-year-old who plays the violin and piano, and he will practice the piano and he's awesome at it. He doesn't practice the violin because it's really hard. I tried it a couple of times. It's really hard. And so he avoids it because it's hard, right? But he's not getting any better because he's not practicing it, right? And so teaching can be hard, especially if you've got anxiety. It's really hard to get up there and speak confidently and do all the things you need to do to make a really good class. And so it can be easy to get up there initially and just feel like a failure. And it's really easy to go, this isn't for me, I'm out, right? But it's never going to be great in the beginning. It's always going to be a bit shit, let's be honest. And that's okay, because you'll get better. And like anything you practice in life, you will practice it and get better at it and come out at the other end being awesome. So let's move on to what is next. Oh, actually, just talking quickly about energy levels again. So we talked about like knowing what's good for you, but there's also energy levels that you bring into a class, right? And I'm assuming you've all been to different classes with different teachers and seen how that can play out. Like some people have super high energy, right? They're just like, wow, you've just like amped me up for the day. But then that person that has super high energy, sometimes for you and your sort of demeanor and how you're feeling in the day can be just too intense. It's like, whoa, back off, lady. Or dude, that's just like, I can't deal with you right now. So your energy levels need to be right for you to represent who you are so that you can maintain that over the days and weeks. I know when I started teaching, I felt like I needed to bring more energy because I am introverted. I am quieter. I'm not a hype girl. I'm not going to be like up there shouting and, jumping off reformers or anything like that. I'm quite reserved, and I'll talk in my normal voice that I'm talking in right now. So it took me some time to think about where my energy needs to be in a class so that I can maintain it throughout the day. Because if you're forcing that, again, you're just going to feel super depleted really quickly. And that's not going to work. Obviously, you're just going to burn out really quickly. And I've been in a situation before at my studio where we were down some teachers, and I was teaching about 20 sessions a week, plus running the studio, plus my kids and family. And it does get to a point where you're just hanging on by a thread. And so if you've got a lot of other things going on in your life as well as teaching, you need to consider how many hours you can feasibly take on. So I know people that teach 40 classes a week, and I just go, good for you, because there's no way on earth that I could ever teach that many classes in a week. No freaking way. 20 for me is like beyond my max even, right? But it depends what else you've got on in your life. I just know for me, teaching fills me up, but it can also pull my energy down as well if I do it too much or in the wrong timetable for myself. So that's something to consider. Oh, so last little point there is, why do hard things? Like, why? Like, we know that we can still work on anxiety without having to get up there in front of a crowd and teach Pilates, right? But there is a little thing called the teaching high. And this photo cracks me up. I'm like, who the heck is that person? But these classes that have been in the slides, they were actually taken in an actual class I was teaching. So obviously I do get a little bit hyped, just the photos sort of dobbing on me a little bit. I'm in the flow though, right? So the teaching high. So the thrill of alive, and I'm going to go performance here and talk a little bit more about performance in a moment. It can enhance endorphins, serotonin, dopamine, and adrenaline levels in the body. So while I personally don't think about teaching as a performance, it has performative qualities, right? So there are correlations. We're standing in front of a group of people. We are presenting in a manner, right? And we're bringing energy to that space. And we've got to control the energy in that space, right? We're not just sort of reading a script. We're not just having chats with people the whole time. We are like we're conducting an orchestra, right? So that's a performance. And I don't like to think of teaching as a performance, because that sounds like, hey, everyone, I'm the star of the show. Look at me. I don't think about teaching like that at all. I think of it as a collaboration with my students and working with them and feeling the energy and feeling the void when it needs to be filled, and bring them up when it needs to, and chill them out when it needs to, right? So these are the types of things that I'm talking about when I talk about performance, not being some sort of a diva or something like that. So I hope you can see the differences there for me. So the teaching high, you often will feel it after teaching a really great session, especially. And so initially you might not get that. I do remember the first time I got a teaching high, and it was when I was in my teacher training, and I was with someone I was super comfortable with as we were practice teaching and we did our practicals. And I just let it flow. Like, I was not nervous because we'd been hanging out for the last 10 weeks. We were like new best friends, and I just did the thing, and I was like, wow, that was really fun. That was super fun. And that made me kind of feel that addiction to like, okay, this is something that I might actually want to do, because that was super fun. And it's like everything just flows. And I'm hoping you've felt that, because it's pretty awesome. And so what do we know about these chemicals in our brains? They all help with anxiety, right? So we know this, it's a fact. And so teaching can actually help you with anxiety. That sounds crazy, but true. For me, I know. And besides the chemicals that that type of situation can release. There's also the situation where we're getting out of our heads, right? And communicating with a bunch of people in front of us. So it's kind of a 2-for-1 deal. We're getting these endorphins and serotonin and all this stuff is rushing through our body. We're feeling good, but we're also helping others to feel good, and that feels even better. Now, I'm going to link together the teaching high with the flow state. And you've probably heard flow state being thrown around. So flow state was researched quite a while ago now. I think at the bottom of this paper, I have, at the bottom of this slide, I have a link to some papers as well there. But you can Google flow state and you'll find some information. So it's described as being in the zone, right? It's that sense of fluidity between your body and mind where it seems like you're totally absorbed in what you're doing. And it's when you're super focused on something and it's like you're focused beyond the point of distraction, right? So no one can pull you out of that because you're just in that zone. And everything just feels in sync. So when we find that flow state, we often think about it as, it can be doing any task, and teaching is part of that. Right. So you may have felt it when you're actually doing Pilates, right? You're just in the flow and everything's happening and everything, like doing a bit of self-practice and everything's just moving really well. I find that flow state quite often when I'm teaching. It won't happen if I'm in my head. If I'm in my head, things are just going to feel clunky and disjointed. But when you let go of your thoughts, when you're there with your students and you're focusing on them, things can start to flow. You get into flow state, you get that thrill of the teaching high, and together it's magic. It's pretty awesome. When we're in flow state, we actually perform better. And again, I know I've got that word perform for lack of a better word, but we do better when we're in flow state. So being able to find that sense of ease in what we do is really important. And we're not going to find the sense of ease in what we do if we're trying to be somebody else. We're going to touch on that, right? We've got to be us. We've got to let that flow from inside of us and who we are. Okay, so they're the links, and I can get them popped on to this Q&A if you're interested in taking a look at those later on. All right, let's have a look at my tricks. And I'm calling them tricks. They're not tricks, right? They're just things that I do that I find have helped me, and they might help you as well. So my first trick is exposure to what you find terrifying. And that's one step at a time, right? These things are hard. They're not easy. They're never going to be easy. For me, coming here to speak to you was terrifying. Right? I've done one other Q&A before, and at the start, I could feel a panic attack coming on, and I had to run away quickly, have a couple of breaths, and come back in again. And so even just remembering that, the start of a panic attack happened the last time that I did this made me freak out about doing this, right? And it would have been really easy to say, I'm not well today. Sorry, guys, I can't make it. But no, doing hard things can help. So some other things that I did in the beginning was community classes. So when I was initially starting to teach, having people pay me full price for sessions, when I didn't feel like I was good enough for that, I didn't feel like I was as good as my teacher to be able to charge those rates. Having some sort of community class where I could get a bunch of friends together and teach them somewhere that was either free or cheap helped me in the beginning just to work with bigger crowds, right? Because you can teach 1 or 2 people and that's something that's good. But when you're teaching 10, that changes things a lot. Being able to manage a group of people and not forget anybody and anything can change things a lot. So that helped me. If I feel like my anxiety or my panic attack symptoms are coming on, I know that I'm in my head too much. I know that I've just gone inside and I'm stuck in there a little bit and I need to get out. So I'll do things like getting everyone into some sort of a relaxing movement. So some kind of chilled out, stretchy kind of shape. All right, we're going to do a little stretch now, everybody. And then speaking slowly, speaking gently, talking about maybe some breath. And I'm actually helping myself out in the process. So little things like that have helped me as well when I've had those moments of freak out. Knowing your shit. So it's important to know your shit, because if you're getting up there and you're feeling inadequate, that's definitely going to bring on those feelings a lot quicker, right? Someone's going to ask me something, I'm not going to know how to answer it. That becomes a freak out. I know that I had that initially. I know I had a few questions about anatomy and I didn't know the answers and it freaked me out. And instead of having the confidence to say, hey, I'm a Pilates teacher, I'm not an anatomist, I don't need to know this, I felt like I should have known it. And it made me feel like I was less worthy. So I could have done two things, right? I could have said, hey, I'm not really sure about that. I haven't studied anatomy, I studied Pilates. That would have been definitely something I was well in with my rights to say. But instead I felt like I was not good enough and that should I even be doing this at all? Right? But knowing your shit as someone with anxiety has helped me to find the confidence to be able to say to someone, you know what, I don't really know. Whereas before that felt like an incorrect answer, an answer that wasn't helpful to anybody. So I had done many teacher trainings before I felt like I knew my shit. And I'm not saying that you need to spend your life savings on teacher trainings. I'm just saying you need to find the teacher trainings that are going to give you what you need to feel like you know your shit. So I did a yoga and Pilates training. I did two other Pilates trainings before I did my training with Breathe. And that's when I felt like I knew my shit. And I can say that because I was saying that before I worked for Breathe. Now that I am, it sounds a little bit biased, but I was saying that before, promise. You can ask people, I'll give you their numbers. And so once I felt like I knew my shit, I felt I could stand in confidence and talk to people and not feel like I was ever going to be caught out. Alrighty. Focus on helping and educating others is a massive one for me. Just like when you fall out of flow state because you're too much in your head, when you're too much in your head, you're not focusing on the people around you. And that's a massive part of what we do, right? If we're in our head thinking about what's next, oh my God, I've forgotten something. Oh my God, what is this song on? I didn't realize that was in there. You can forget about all of that and focus on the students you have in front of you and what they need. You know, does somebody need a little bit of an extra tip or hint on what the movement is that they're doing? Are they in the right shape? Can I educate them a little bit more here on how they're moving and why it's good for them? Can I give them some more choice with regards to their spring options or their modifications? So these are the things, if you really focus on them, they can help you to get out of your head and into the classroom and give your students a really great experience. I find those sessions when I feel the most of service to my students are the best ones, the ones when I'm truly helping them find great movement, giving them options that are right for them on that day, you know, not forcing them to do things because that's what my program is, but like, hey, let's just try this one out. And hey, how about if you try it this way, because that looks like it's going to be more comfortable for you. Those are the types of things that really help your students and come back and pay you back as well. So focus on those students around you. Have fun. Why the heck wouldn't you want to have fun? Like, how many people can say they go to work and have fun? Not many, probs, but we can have fun. We really, really can. And again, when you have fun, your students are having fun too, right? If you're feeling freaked out and you're stiff as a board and you're just trying to get words out, that's not going to be fun for anybody, especially you. But when you can relax and get into that flow state and have a joke with your clients and just let the mood be like, just let the mood be high, right? You're the one that sets that tone, right? The students follow that. Sometimes you can step into a room when you're teaching at my studio, we have 14 reformers, and I can step into that room and sometimes it can feel flat as heck. Like it's like, wow, what is going on today? These people are not feeling the vibe today. That's okay. It's not their job to feel the vibe. It's my job to lift the vibe as a teacher. So when I come into a space and it's feeling like that, you know, I will think about my music playlist. What's going on there? Can I get some better music on that'll make these people feel a little bit more maybe relaxed or happy or whatever it is? And then I get around and I check in with each and every one of my students and see how they're doing today. How you doing? What's going on? If they've got some shit going on and it feel like they're having a bad day, I'll tell them things like, well, you're going to have a really great class. And so you're going to feel heaps better after that. And I mean it because it's true. We know that they're going to have all of those good chemicals that we talked about from the performance adrenaline. So we know they're going to have those same chemicals released as they do the class. And so it's a fact. You can tell them they're going to feel heaps better. And by the time you've gone around and you've had a quick little chat and checked in with everybody and made everybody feel seen as an individual, then you've automatically lifted the energy in the room and you haven't even started teaching yet, right? So little things like that can help you find the vibe in a room. And then from there, just like let it flow. Like I said, I'm not a super hype person, but I know how to have fun. We all know how to have fun, right? So it's about finding what that is for you. Okay, clothing helps. I think I mentioned before that one of my symptoms are the sweaty pits, right? So if I'm wearing a light colored t-shirt, that's going to freak me out because I know I'm going to get little sweaty pits and then I'm going to try and hide them the whole time like this. And that's not going to be good. That's not going to be a good class. You can see in this picture, I've got a tank top on, so I'm free, I can dry, or I'm wearing something baggy, right? So little things like that to do for yourself to cover your back are going to help if you're someone like me. So that's my trick for me. You might not get sweaty pits. You might have some other weird thing that you're going to find something that's going to help you to get over. Prepare or don't prepare. So I've got both of them there because different people are going to find different things more helpful. I found that initially I prepared, and that was helpful to me. So I practiced my own class front to back. I taught it to somebody else front to back. I paired my playlist with it so I could get the timing right. I knew my playlist was 50 minutes. My class was 50 minutes. Once I hit that cool down song, I needed to be at the right spot, right? I had my warm-up song at the start. And I knew when I finished that, okay, it's time to move on to the main portion of my class. I did everything I could to make myself feel super ready and prepared to show up and get it right. But what I found was very quickly over preparing was doing my head in. I felt like I couldn't prepare enough, and it would bite me in the butt a bit at the other end. And that was because I would have my class written down and I would feel like if I missed a bit, it would freak me out and then I would spiral. I would feel anxiety. Oh my God, I've missed a bit. What's happening? And because you can't just stand there with a notebook and read your class, right? That's not cool. That's not setting the vibe. I've seen it happen before in teacher training. And if you've tried to do that, it just does not work. You've got to get some sense of, connectedness with your students. So what I found was if I had a full class prepared and I tried to follow that script, even just by glancing at it, it would freak me out. And of course, you can't remember every single class from start to finish that you have. So what I found works for me probably within my first month of teaching, and it's what I still do now, is that I have a couple of ideas in my head that I want to do. So, all right, I might do some short box work today. So I'll make sure that when I get there, I'll get the foot straps on my reformers. They have to be attached separately. I'll get those foot straps on. What else can I do with the box in that class? Okay, I can do some swan stuff. Cool. And that's my plan. It's in my head, it's vague, it's rough, and then I'll flow with that. And I find that works for me. And that way, if I have a prenatal client show up and I've plan to do swan stuff. I'm like, well, that's not going to work. Okay, instead, we're going to sit on the box and we're going to do some rollbacks and do some arm stuff there. And that way I don't feel like panic is going to overtake me because my class plan has to change at the last minute, because it was loose to start with, and I can work with that. So figure out what works best for you with regards to planning, whether it's preparing heaps or not really preparing too much. And then, of course, you've got to have some shitty jokes in there, because that makes the class more fun. And when your clients are having fun, you're having fun, and vice versa. And I can't remember jokes like from start to finish. I'm not telling actual like knock jokes or anything like that in class. I'm just talking about little quips and anecdotes, right? Some funny things. You can end up having like personal jokes in your classes. Like I've got clients that I've had for many, many years. And so over those years, we've developed our own like lingo, our Pilates class lingo. And so those are the types of things I'm talking about. So finding that way to build that community and being able to communicate with your students that way. All right. I've popped mindfulness in there as well. And I just want to start by saying that for me, mindfulness is not meditation. It can be. I can meditate. I have meditated in the past, but I find what works for me better now are small little doses of mindfulness throughout the day. That helps me to keep my anxiety in check. Whereas if I'm waiting to meditate, or if I don't have time to meditate, that's not going to be helpful for me if I'm having a day, right? So finding ways to bring mindfulness for you, and that could just be doing your own movement, right? That's mindfulness, going for a walk outside, preferably, because that can help with your mindfulness, playing with your dogs, playing with your kids. There's lots of different ways that you can find mindfulness without meditation. Alrighty. Finding your authentic voice. You got to love your clients. This is the darling Margie, one of my students. And I love her. I love all of my students. But I do it in the way that works for me. Right. And I'm saying love, and that's a pretty strong word, but I can honestly say that I love them. Love you guys. I will say I love you guys. You don't have to say that, obviously, but you've got to have that sense of care for the people in front of you, right? As what we do, we need to genuinely and truly care about those individuals in front of us. Otherwise, it does become that other performance, right? The one that's not great. Now, I explain to you kind of in how I can care for my students, the way I can go up to each and every one of them and check in with them and, hey, what happened last week with blah, 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 and just finding those connection points that I feel like I formed a relationship with them and I know who they are to, not heaps, some of them, but I know enough about them to be able to form that connection with them. I know teachers that love their clients different ways. So I've got a teacher that works in my studio that is big and bubbly. And I don't know how much she knows about each and every one of her students, but I know that she's like, hey girl, looking good today. She's got that kind of vibe. That's just not me at all, but that's who she is. And she'll amp them up and pump up their tires, the whole class, telling them how freaking awesome they are. And that's how she does it, right? And so you'll find the way to love your clients. It could be super chill. It could be right up there. But you've got to do it to be able to find who you are as a teacher. All right, the cliche stuff. There's only one you. You've heard it. I mentioned it before, and it's really true. Like there is only one you, and you are special. You are special, and people will want to come to you and see you week after week, every single one of you. And I know that kind of sounds crazy. It sounds crazy to me when I think about people wanting to come and see me. Why would they want to come and see me? Because we're all cool people in our own way. We all have something to offer, and we all have some way to connect with other people, every single one of us. I was telling you at the start about my mentor. I've actually had two mentors. Well, I've had probably a lot more than that, but at the very start of my teaching career, I had two. One was that, center of the universe lady, yoga guru, and the other one was my Pilates mentor. And she was quite different. She was reserved, but she had this quiet confidence and warmth about her. And like, she was very quiet. So they were two very different people, and they taught very differently. And I felt that real kind of dichotomy of like, how do I be like her? How do I be like her? It just didn't work. I just ended up feeling very confused and very defeated about me as a teacher. Like, I can't do this because I don't have what they have. I didn't need to have what they had. I need to have what I have, and I need to let that out. So find the confidence to just be you, to stand in a class and speak from your voice, speak in the way you speak. I forget my next little one. Oh, yes, here we go. Yes. So people can smell that inauthenticity a mile away. And I popped that in there because I've seen this experience happen before, and it's really, really sad. And it's about, just being who you are, like I was saying before. I had an interview once with a teacher that was auditioning to teach in my studio. And we always have a quick chat first, and I get to know who you are as a person. And then we do a little bit of movement so I can see how you teach. And this particular Pilates teacher, I instantly connected with her. I was like, oh, she's awesome. I love her. Great, exciting. But then when she came to teach, she turned into a completely different person. So she basically put a persona on. She wasn't her authentic self, and it wasn't good. It was very fake. It felt horrible. And I was so sad because I was like, I really liked you. Why did you have to do this? Why couldn't you just be you? I wanted you to be you. And that's how people are going to feel about you too, if you put on a bit of a fakeness, right? So be you. That's what people are coming for. I'll try to stop saying that now, but you get it. I mean it. Be you. So who are you? What is your authentic voice? It's your Pilates knowledge, what you know about Pilates, plus you as an individual, and that equals your authentic voice. It's as simple as that. It's you and Pilates, and that's who you are. And so you don't need to be anything else. You don't need to be extra anything. You just need to let whoever you are come out. And I know that sounds super basic. I know that sounds like it should be easy. But of course, when you're suffering from anxiety and it all feels very overwhelming, that can be hard to do, right? Putting on some sort of persona can almost seem like a shield or a barrier that's going to protect you, but it really won't. It's just going to put the barriers up that will stop you from getting into flow state. It'll stop you from connecting with your students authentically. It'll stop you from having fun. So be you, team. Okie dokie. So here are the resources that I talked about earlier. And the first one is anything Brené Brown. And if you've read Brené Brown, you know she's freaking awesome. She's my secret best friend. She just doesn't know it, that we're best friends, but we are. And I really love her. I think she's doing such great things. She researches emotions and feelings. And if you've read anything of hers, you'll know she's got a really great way of connecting. So that's probably why I feel like we're best friends, because I just feel like she's speaking to me. So read Brené Brown. She's awesome. Unwinding Anxiety by Dr. Judd Brewer is a fantastic book. It delves into what anxiety is in much, much greater detail than we did today. Judd suffered from anxiety himself, or suffers from anxiety himself. And so this is something that he's researched. Lots of research has gone into this book. It is phenomenal. It also comes with an app, which I found really helpful. Within the app, it's got tools, so mindfulness tools. And when I talked about mindfulness early and how I don't really meditate, I tend to use this app. The app does cost money if you've got the full subscription, but you can use the little tools on the app for free if you don't want to pay for the subscription. So you can do a little download. You may be able to get a free trial to do some of the lessons, and some of the lessons at the start are about what is anxiety, and he goes into greater detail into the things we've talked about today. So they are probably my, biggest recommendations of resources that have helped me, when times are a bit tough, being able to go back to something. And of course, the community that you build around you is a massive resource to you. So if you've got people to lean on, people that you can talk to, it's going to make your days a lot more fun. And being able to lean on someone, we all need that, right? Then, of course, I'm not a mental health professional. I do not claim to be. I'm just sharing with you the things that I know about teaching that have helped for me. And so, of course, you can see your mental health professional if you need some extra help. All right, team. So that is my presentation. I can open it up to any questions if people have any. We can have a little bit of a chat for the rest of the time. Feel free to unmute yourself if you've got one. If you've got to head off, I'll see you next time. You can always send me a little DM on the chat as well, or pop a message in chat. And you can always reach out to me via Instagram if you like as well, if you want to have something a little bit more offline, private conversation.
I was just going to say something.
Yes, Summer.
Hello. That was really lovely, by the way. Thank you. I was just going to say, I can really understand what you were saying about, when you over prepare for a class and then I used to get really, really anxious. And now what I do, I just have a few little things in my head and then I just go with it. And it always changes, because obviously you get someone in that is new or that has got, a bad back or is pregnant that you wouldn't think of. So you have to switch it up anyway. So it's always good to have those few little bits in your head. And then rather than putting everything to a perfect plan, because that's when I used to get anxious and think, oh God, I'm so rubbish and I forgot this and I forgot that. So now I've completely changed and I just let it flow.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, it's such a terrible feeling, isn't it? It's almost like you can feel it just getting further and further away from you. Just like, oh my gosh, I've totally stuffed this up. But yeah, giving yourself wiggle room. And it comes down to knowing your shit, right? So if you know all the repertoire, if you know all the things there are to do, if you've practiced and practiced and practiced, you're going to be able to come up with things to do. And it's just about not freaking out about that. Yeah, I'm glad that you can relate to that, Summer. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. So welcome.
Hi, Belinda.
Hi.
Belinda. This is Yvonne from the United States.
Hi, Yvonne.
I was going to give you an idea. You said you don't like to use the word performance.
Oh, yes.
Maybe the word execute more efficiently might be a good substitute word. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, execute could work, right? It's a very strong word.
Okay. But I was just thinking,
it takes
them to execute the exercises.
Yeah, takes performance out of it, which is good, because that word kind of just makes me feel a bit icky about using it. Thank you. Right? Great tip.
Nice meeting you. I'm off. Got to go to work.
Thanks,
Have a lovely day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for your messages in DM. All right. If there's no more questions, we'll call it. Thanks, everybody. Nice to hang out with you. Reach out if you need a chat. Bye,
Thank you. That was brilliant, Belinda.
Bye.
Bye.